Namaste, Sat Shri Akal, Assalamu Alaikum, and Jai Swaminarayan. It is a privilege and honor to welcome our guest this evening, His Excellency Dr. Mugir Khamis Al Khaili, the Chairman of the Department of Community Development, and to welcome Pujya Brahmavihari Swami ji from the BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha. And of course, I welcome to all of you who have joined us from afar. Welcome. God is giving us the opportunity to witness history in making. We are blessed to experience the enduring strength of diversity in the UAE with the construction of traditional Hindu mandir in Abu Dhabi. Before I invite a distinguished speaker for today, Pujya Brahmavihari Swami ji, to enlighten us with his knowledge on the important topic, that is, the value of values. Let us take a recap of our previous webinars.
If you want to lead, you must invest more than 50% of your time in yourself. Leaders who are paving the path to superconscious leadership are leaders who seek inspirations from the simplest minds of the present. Leadership is about leading from within. And when you have that power to lead from within, you generate an influence wherever you are. As long as you lead consciously and superconsciously, you are connected with everybody. And when you are connected in this deeper way, you make a difference, not just to the people around you, but to your own self within yourself. And such leaders are naturally followed and sought out for. They are not leaders that need to advertise themselves. Maybe such leaders may not be in the history books as we have discussed before, but such leaders shall live immortally in the hearts of the people. If you are a good father or a great mother, if you are a loyal friend, if you are a person who is compassionate and helps everybody, you already have a permanent place in the people who you influence. Such leaders, even amongst human beings, who are not just conscious but super conscious, they rise beyond the limitations of this world. Such leaders, they become limitless and they are timeless.
We can see how beneficial this series of webinar has been for us, right from the first webinar of leading consciously to the previous one, which elaborated on the topic of leading superconsciously. Therefore, it is my great pleasure to introduce Pujya Brahmavihari Swami ji, the saint overseeing the development of Hindu Mandir project in Abu Dhabi. Pujya Brahmavihari Swami ji comes from Leicester, UK. He has an exceptional educational background and was offered a scholarship from the University of Oxford to study medicine. Swamiji was initiated into sainthood by his guru Pramukh Swami Maharaj in 1981 at the age of 16. He then studied Sanskrit, Eastern and Western philosophies, and world religion. He is an astounding orator and writer. He is serving as a senior sadhu, leading various departments of BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha internationally. He is also part of the core team that designed and made two Akshardham mandirs in Gandhinagar and New Delhi. Swamiji is currently heading the BAPS Hindu Mandir project in Abu Dhabi, the first traditional Hindu temple. His topic today, the values of value, which will look at the core values of Hinduism in relation to those of the world. I now welcome Pujya Swamiji to enlighten us with his words of wisdom and his remarkable qualities that will help us to comprehend true value of values in life. The talk will be followed by question and answer session, which may address many questions.
श्री स्वामीनारायण भगवाननी जय, अक्षर पुरुषोत्तम महाराजनी जय, राधा कृष्ण देवनी जय, सियावर रामचंद्र भगवाननी जय। उमापति महादेवनी जय। गुरु हरि प्रमुख स्वामी महाराजनी जय। गुरु हरि महंत स्वामी महाराजनी जय। प्रमुख स्वामी महाराज शताब्दी महोत्सवनी जय। With innermost prayers, let us begin this month's webinar, The Value of Values. All great cultures and all great religions agree that universal human values are timeless. It is in this light, in this league, let us first understand why Hinduism is often referred to as a religion of timeless values and timeless wisdom. Perhaps some of you may have been wondering, why is it called timeless Hindu wisdom? Even if you haven't, it is still worth exploring. The word Hindu was popularized by the Persians for people living around or beyond the river Indus. So another name for Hinduism is the Hindu Dharma, originally called in the Sanskrit language Sanatan Dharma. Sana Bhavam Sanatanam, that which is eternal, that which is without beginning or without end, beginningless or endless, beyond beginning or beyond end is actually and obviously beyond time. Hence the word timelessness is important in the entire thought and philosophy of Hindu Dharma. There are many shades of meaning to Sanatan Dharma. Once we understand the intricacies of the Sanskrit language, the samas and vigraha, one being Sanatanasya Dharma, which means that Dharma which has been founded by the eternal, not founded by any mortal. The second is Sanatanaschaso Dharmascha, that Dharma which itself is eternal, timeless. And the third meaning is Sanatanam Karoti Sanatana Yati, that Dharma which makes its followers eternal, timeless. As you can see in the many shades of meaning of the Hindu Dharma or Sanatan Dharma, timelessness or eternity is a very important part. The vastness of Hindu Dharma, both from the point of view of time and thought, makes it universal. To further explain this with a very simple example, and by no means do I claim this example to be comprehensive. Once, a group of young scientists surrounded a Hindu sadhu after a science and spiritual conference. The scientists asked him that, Swamiji, can you tell us when Hinduism was founded? Who is the founder? And what is the main scripture or book of Hinduism? The Swamiji smiled and he explained that, first tell me, do you or do you not believe that every religion or every thought or philosophy is a stream of knowledge, a river of knowledge? All of them agreed and they said, yes, it's a stream of knowledge that continues for hundreds of thousands of years and affects society. And all of religions in their own unique way have been flowing, have been enhancing, have been enlightening, have been influencing society in the best way possible. So Hinduism itself is a stream of knowledge, a river of knowledge that has been flowing. The young minds agreed and said, yes, we agree. They said even science is a stream of knowledge. The sadhu said yes. So would you or would you not agree that a stream of knowledge that has been flowing for hundreds of thousands of years has importance in influencing the mind and the thought and the philosophies of the people around us. They all agreed. If science itself is a stream of knowledge, then who is the founder of science? They were a little puzzled. Would you say Archimedes? Would you say Newton? Would you say Einstein? Would you say a host of scientists like Edison who have contributed to science? They said, no, you can't single out one scientist saying that he or she has founded it. Okay, then when was the stream of science founded? They said ever since the first man who picked up 2 stones and created the first spark, that is when science was founded. So there is no date. And what single book of science would you say is the main bedrock of science? Is it The Origin of Species? Is it Principia Mathematica? Is it the General Theory of Relativity? Or so many papers and so many books and so many ideas that have been given by the great scientists of the world. They all said, well, science does not have a single founder. Science itself does not have a date of foundation. And science does not have a single book. Because every great enlightened scientist have contributed to the stream of science. The sadhu smiled and said, well, Hinduism is much vaster than science. Science might have begun with man himself. Hinduism has begun much before man and will continue after man. If science, which deals with material and things visible and tangible, and for that you don't have a single founder or a single book or a date of foundation. Hinduism deals with inner spirituality, philosophy which you can't see. So Hinduism itself is so vast, so ageless and timeless, and so spiritual that it does not have a single founder, and it does not have a single book, and it does not have one single date of origin, because it is beyond beginning and beyond end. It is timeless. In this simple way, we can also try and grasp the vastness of the Hindu Dharma and the wisdom and values of Hinduism, which are relevant for all ages, for all people, at all times, and in all events and situations. In one way, Hinduism is beyond time, space, people, and places. Imagine the Shanti mantra, which were sung at the foothills of the Himalayas by the great saints and sages who composed them thousands of years ago. If the same Om Purna Madaha Purna Vidam, if the same mantra is spoken after thousands of years now, they have the same potency and same power to enlighten us. It is beyond time. If the same mantras which were said in the Himalayas, and if they are sung, the Shanti part is sung by the St. James school students, or they are sung in the White House or in the Parliament House, they have the same ability to create the energy of the same peace that was created thousands of years ago in a different space, in a different environment, and even today. So just as Hinduism, all spiritual knowledge, all values and wisdom of every religion on this earth are beyond time and space, and even beyond people and places. You could be of any culture or any community. If you understand the wisdom of values of any religion thoroughly, then that wisdom and values have the ability to improve life at that level. To explain the relevance of Hindu wisdom for all ages, for all times, for all purposes, and in all situations. I'd like to take you back 2000 years. In the year 326 BC, Alexander the Great, after his multiple conquests, had come down to the Indus Valley. Alexander the Great was no ordinary conqueror. By the age of 19, he had become the king of Macedonia. By the age of 21, he had managed to unify the whole of Macedonia. By the age of 23, he had conquered Persia. By the age of 25, he had become the sole ruler of Egypt. By the age of 28, he had reached India. And in the area of Takshashila, after defeating Porus, we must understand that Alexander the Great had never tasted defeat. Then people wonder, why did he return back after fighting the Hindus or the Indians? There are many reasons that perhaps there was mutiny in his own army, perhaps he was tired, perhaps he was injured. But there is also one idea that has been given, not just by the Hindu thinkers, but as early as the Greek writers like Plutarch. In the 1st and 2nd century, Plutarch was a Greek writer, a philosopher, a biographer, an essayist, a historian, who later on became a Roman citizen. But he writes about Alexander the Great's interaction with 10 Hindu sadhus, gymnosophists. It was said that Alexander himself valued knowledge and wisdom. And this is in relevance with Hindu wisdom. And when he found out that there were 10 simple sadhus who had actually incited amongst the native kings to oppose Alexander, he decided to gather these 10 sadhus and then ask them questions. Those were the famous Alexandrian neck riddles. Neck riddles also means that a riddle is given, and if you can't answer the riddle satisfactorily, then your neck would be chopped off. So your existence depended upon the answers or the wisdom that you expressed. Alexander commands his commanders to go and visit the sadhus and ask them to come and see him. The sadhus write back to Alexander saying that it is the wish of Alexander to see them, then it is he should come and see them. The other thing they write, that if you want what we have, you should come in peace, because you are a man of war and we are the people of peace. Seeing some wisdom in these letters, Alexander decides to go to the sadhus. He gathers all of them together and he appoints one of the most elderly and the wisest amongst them as the judge. And he tells them that we shall be asking each one of you one question, and you should be the judge. And the person who first answers the worst question, he would be the one to be dead. The first question Alexander asks, that who are numerous, the living or the dead? If you or I were to answer this question, we would say definitely the dead, because more people have died in history than those who are living. So the sadhu answers, the living are more numerous, because those who are dead do not count anymore. Alexander was impressed. The second question that Alexander asks, that which is larger, the sea or the land? Simple geography teaches us that there is 3 times more water than land. Still the sadhu answers, land is larger, because even underneath the sea there is land and sea is just part of the earth. Alexander still is deeply impressed. The third question he asks, that which is stronger, life or death? Normally, we would say death because death has the power to extinguish life. At the end of the day, the struggle between life and death, death succeeds. The sadhu answers life because death no longer feels pain and cannot tolerate misery. Life continues despite pain and misery. So life is far stronger than death. The fourth question Alexander asks, that who is the wisest of us all? Hoping that the sadhus would say Alexander himself. But the sadhus say that none of us have yet found. If it's wiser than all of us, of course he's beyond us. The next question that Alexander asks is that how can a man become most loved? Now he starts asking questions about his own personal desires. How can a man become most loved? The sadhus say that by being the most powerful and least frightening. With power, you become fearful. So by being most powerful and least frightening, you become the most loved. The next question, out of curiosity, he asks just to test the sadhus, that which came first, day or night? The sadhu smiles and says, day by 1.5 nights. Alexander is puzzled and has said, is that an answer? That's a strange answer. The sadhu says, strange questions deserve strange answers. Then Alexander expresses his deepest wish and he says, how can man become God? If you know history, his mother Olympias, she told him that he was not born of man, he was born from the gods. And he should be treated as a god, and the whole world is his to conquer. So Alexander had this thing in his mind that he was the descendant of gods. So he says that how can a man become God? The sadhu replies by doing what is impossible. Alexander asks that what is that is impossible? The sadhu says, becoming God. Imagine to tell a conqueror that your desire to be God can never be fulfilled because it's impossible. Next, Alexander asks that to whom can a human never lie? Because throughout his journey, of course, he's had to lie to his old soldiers, to the people, to his own countrymen. So he says, to whom does a human being never lie? The sadhu says, to whom who knows everything, that is God. And then Alexander also asks that how long should a man live? The sadhu says that until he feels that death is more important or death is better than life, he should live as long as that. Alexander then finally asks that when you are so wise, why did you instigate the Sabas, the native kings, to revolt against me? The sadhus reply that we believe that either we should live with dignity or we should die with dignity. Dignity is the most important part of life. Deeply impressed by these answers, he still turned to the 10th sadhu, the senior most, and said, now which one should be the first to die? The sadhu said that none of them. Alexander said that whose answer is the worst? The sadhu replied, each answer is worse than one another. Then he said, then you should be the person that I should put to death. He said, no, Alexander, you are a man of your word. You said the first to give the worst answer should be put to death. And none of them have given the worst answer. And definitely I am not the first to answer your questions, so you cannot put me to death. Deeply impressed by these Hindu sages who had nothing with them. They were almost naked. And here was a conqueror who had half of the world under his feet. Alexander felt so touched by Hindu wisdom and felt it was so timeless. He requested one of them to accompany him and asked him to be his teacher. The Greeks called him Kalanos, and historians believe that it might have been the name Kalyana, which was mispronounced by the Greeks as Kalanos. And also Dandamis, who could have been Dandiswami. Nevertheless, I just want to emphasize one idea, that the ancient Hindu wisdom is not just relevant for the Hindus, it's relevant across cultures, across people of all status. The Hindu wisdom is important even at this critical stage and relevant today. A similar question was asked to His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj in 1994 by the Vice Consul General of the American Embassy in Bombay. He had read the Hindu scriptures in different ways and at different times, and he had come to Pramukh Swami for darshan. His name was James Waller. And while doing darshan of Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he asked a question that, Swamiji, there is a question which is deep-seated in my mind and I would want to express it. Pramukh Swami allowed him. He said, how relevant are the Upanishads and Vedas today? Pramukh Swami Maharaj replied that they are as relevant today as they were then. He argued that the saints and sages of those times have addressed the issues of that time. Then how can those answers be as relevant today after thousands of years? Pramukh Swami said that the saints and sages, they have answered the important and critical questions of the human mind and the heart. They knew the human mind and the heart, and the human mind and the heart is same. So of course those answers are relevant today as they were then. James Waller further questioned that how could the saints and sages of the Vedic times know about the current and contemporary times? Pramukh Swami said, just as you believe in science and you have invented the television which can see across space something of this country into another country, the radio that can hear things distant from any corner of this earth, you can hear the radio. The Hindu saints and sages were gifted with spirituality and they were Arsh Purush, those that could see in the future. So the saints and sages of the Upanishadic times could see across the future, and that's why they are as relevant today as they were then. Smilingly, James Waller asked Pramukh Swami, are such sadhus, saints and sages present at this time, those who would know my mind and my heart? Pramukh Swami said, yes. In so many different ways, the enlightened saints and sages can know your mind and your heart. He said, but how can I know? Pramukh Swami smiled and said, it is not through words. It is only when you experience do you realize that such things are possible. After this short meeting, as James Waller and a few of us, we left Pramukh Swami's room and we were waiting in the Mumbai BAPS Swaminarayan Mandir on the 5th floor, waiting for the lift to come up. We were all in silence. One sadhu, his name Tirth Swarup Swami, he straight away came running out of Pramukh Swami's room. And funnily enough, he was carrying a basket. Like you would have people in the street sellers who carry, a wicker basket. He was carrying a wicker basket He looked so odd, and he said to me in Gujarati, saying that Swami, Pramukh Swami એ મોકલ્યું છે સાહેબ માટે આ ભેટ છે. That Pramukh Swami has sent this is a gift for James Bola. And I knew that there was a condition or a system with all US embassy officers that they accept no gifts, even in the embassy or outside, and they establish no such relationships because that's how they are made to work in their profession. So I said, no, take it back. There's no point. We can't give anything like that. And it really looked odd that this Swami was carrying a wicker basket on his shoulder and he said this whole basket has to be given to James. So it wasn't even packed properly or even presentable. So I said, no, you take it back. We can't give. So I was talking to him in Gujarati. Again, the Swami insisted, na, ke Pramukh Swami મોકલ્યું છે, આપવું જ પડે. We have to give it to him because Pramukh Swami himself has sent it. And I asked him, what is it? He said, there's mangoes in it. James Waller turned to me and he said, what is this Swami saying? And I said, he's saying that Pramukh Swami has sent this gift and I know you do not accept gifts. And he said, what is in this basket? Embarrassingly, I said mangoes, because how could you give a basket full of mangoes, which is completely unpacked, in a very shoddy manner to an officer of any embassy? So I said, no, it's not necessary. He said, no. If they are mangoes? I said, yes, they are mangoes. He said, while I was standing just outside this lift, I was thinking in my mind that my wife had asked me that before you come home, please bring a few mangoes for us. I was just thinking just now that where will I get these mangoes from? And suddenly these mangoes arrived from nowhere. So go back to Pramukh Swami and tell him that such saints and sages who possess the spiritual ability to know the minds and hearts of people are still present today because the wisdom of Hinduism is timeless. The saints of Hinduism are timeless. And he carried those mangoes back. I want to just remind you that not just the wisdom is timeless, not just the scriptures are timeless, even the saints and sages are timeless. The Greek writers and also the historians of those times and all those people who have studied this and the many shades of this conversation of Alexander the Great and the Hindu sadhus, they often say the sheer self-belief of the Hindu sadhus challenged the beliefs of Alexander the Great. Despite the fact he had conquered half of the world, the sadhus had conquered their own emotions and their own selves. And that was a much stronger and a more powerful statement. In life, self-belief forms the bedrock of everything that we do. At these times of coronavirus crisis, when everything we believe in has been challenged in one way or another, when there is so much disturbance and disruption, our belief in our social systems, in our relatives, in our friends, our belief in our medical system, our belief in the way we work, way we socialize, our belief in our own future, everything has been challenged in one way or another. The most important part in these times of uncertainty, times of death, destruction, disease, and depression, the most important part is to regenerate self-belief, reignite our belief in others, and reaffirm our belief in God and our Guru. These three elements, which are very important, let us try and explore them through the wisdom of Hinduism. So in the next session, we shall explore the importance of belief in oneself. It is very important because you may have everything with you. You may have wealth, you may have wisdom, you may have fame, you may have glory. But if you lack self-belief, everything dissipates in seconds. Once a patient was seen running out of an operation theatre, heaving and panting and completely perspiring. He was shaking. The caring administration of the hospital put him in a place and asked him, why are you running? Why are you so scared? He said, I was wheeled into the operation theater. And he said, then what happened? All the nurses and all the paramedics were saying that keep calm, nothing will happen, everything will go fine, keep self-belief, and don't be nervous. God is with you. It is your first operation, but don't worry, you will be successful. Don't worry, we are all with you. All the administration staff said, well, what's strange about this? Such words give a patient comfort. Why are you so scared and why have you just run out? He said the biggest problem is they were not telling this to me. They were comforting the doctor. That's why I ran out. Even if you are a doctor with all your abilities and all your skills, if you lack self-belief, everything disappears in seconds. At the end of the day, self-belief forms the bedrock of our existence. Next session, let us explore the importance of self-belief in these times of crisis. Jai Swaminarayan.
Swamiji, thank you for your thoughts on the value of values. I speak for the audience when I say they were very inspiring. The story of Alexander and his encounter with the saint is something that has touched me very deeply and is inspiring for all of us. It reinforces the fact that faith in God is key. On behalf of the audience, I would like to call upon Kirti Bhai Desai and Dipesh Bhatia for the question and answer session with Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji, for an enlightening speech. So, the first question is from Vaibhav, who is in Dubai. He makes a very interesting point. He is asking that as you spoke on dignity being the most important thing in life, how can we live a life with dignity?
Well, actually, first of all, we must understand what dignity is. Dignity has a different meaning for each and every one of us. Of course, we all want to feel dignified or carry ourselves as a dignified person. But in actual fact, dignity is not something that you can fake. It's not something that you can create. And it's not something that you can showcase. It's whether you are dignified or you're not. It's like a fragrance of a flower. You cannot hide it. Even if a flower chooses not to give it to anybody, it's still fragrant. And you cannot advertise it. It's not that if somebody comes close to you, the flower emits more and more fragrance. So dignity is not what you show. Dignity is what you are. The fact is, dignity lies in the way we speak, the way we act, the way we think. So actual fact, it depends upon our choice of words, our choice of actions, and our choice of thoughts. But all that is determined by our ability to know ourselves. Who do you think you are? If a father and son, they are talking and both of them look upon each other as equals, the level of talks will change. If two people look at each other as enemies, the way of interaction changes. The fact when we look at ourselves in a special way or as a special person, that's what really determines our level of dignity. Let me explain. There's a legend. Maybe it's true or maybe it's not, but the message is loud and clear. It's also often said that when Queen Victoria was a young girl and her parents wanted a special teacher who taught her, and they specially gave instructions to that teacher that teach her the role of being a good and a great queen. Now imagine a little girl who is not even aware about the kingdom or the level of monarchy or anything. But how would a teacher introduce into the mind of a little girl the royal attitude, the dignified behavior? So, what the teacher did, it is said, that the teacher asked this little girl to memorize all the names of kings and queens in the entire English monarchy. So, after she completely memorized all the kings and queens in the sequence, later on, the teacher introduced her name, Victoria. When she suddenly saw her name appearing at the end of this long line of great kings and queens, she turned to the teacher and said, Victoria, that means I shall be Queen of England. The teacher said, yes. And that's when she said, then I must be good. So the moment you realize who you are, that's when you'll really be able to decide how you behave. So when we talk about dignity, the sadhus in the case of Alexander the Great behaved with dignity, saying that they were men of peace and they did not believe in war. So that's how their attitude of life remained. So if you and I decide that we are kind people, good people, obedient people, then our entire attitude will remain dignified to that level. And I believe that this is perhaps the most important thing in life. In the Ramayana, it is said that after the battle between Ram and Ravan is over, Ravan is already dead, and the last rites of Ravana were supposed to be done, the cremation rites. That's when the brother of Ravan, Vibhishan, he decides to completely not go close to any rites which were being performed. Lord Ram goes to Vibhishan and says that as a brother it is your duty to perform the last rites. Vibhishan says, but Ravan was a demon, he was a devil, he was no good. Why should I be the one who performs the last rites? Lord Ram explains that it is the social custom, that in death you must behave dignified. And I believe that that's what Lord Rama taught Vibhishan, that as a person, however evil the other man may be, if you are good, if you are kind, your role has to be of that level or of that dignity. His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj often gave an example that if you know who you are, you will continue to behave in that manner. Once there was a wise saint. He was going to the river for a bath, and he saw that this entire river was flooding. And across the river, in the heavy floods and stream, he saw a scorpion was being washed away. Completely overtaken by compassion, the sadhu, he had nothing with him, so he puts his hand into the water and tries to save the scorpion. By the time the scorpion is just outside the water, the scorpion suddenly realizes that it's safe, no longer in water. But seeing the hand, it just couldn't help stinging the hand. So he stings the hand of the sadhu, and the sadhu, lets go of the scorpion. Again, it's being washed away, and suddenly the sadhu picks it up again. Second time, the scorpion stings him again. He falls into the water. Third time, the sadhu saves him. Third time, he stings. The fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time. 10 times the scorpion stings him, and 10 times the sadhu tries to save him. A passerby comments and says that every time you save the scorpion, it stings you. And being hurt, why do you still try to save that scorpion? That's when the sadhu turns to the passerby in a dignified way and says, well, is the nature of the scorpion to sting? And if it does not let go of its nature, it's intrinsically the nature of a sadhu to save. Why should I let go of my nature of saving the scorpion? Dignity is behaving according to your nature, which is natural in a higher moral ground. So each one of us need to decide who you and I are. Once you decide, that's how your ideas, your thoughts, your actions, your words will flow out. If somebody shouts at you, you can choose to shout back. You can choose to explain. You can choose to gently answer. You can choose to remain silent. You can also choose to smile. You can choose to walk away. And you can also choose to quietly pray. There are tens of different ways that you can react to a certain situation, and that is determined by our own dignity. Just as the sadhus behaved in a dignified manner, so would a king, so would a sadhu, and so would any evil man in his own nature. So once we decide the level and balance of our morality, once we accept that moral dignity is important, of course, we will be able to behave in a dignified manner, knowing who we are. And that is important, that if we know who we are, the dignity would become as easy and as natural as the fragrance of a flower.
Thank you, Swamiji, for shedding some light on how we all can imbibe dignity in our lives. Kirtibai, I would like to ask Swamiji another question. Now, Swami, we also have a question here from a lady in Mumbai, Shobha. She is asking, what is the value of values in real life?
Well, I believe everybody knows the answer to this question. We all value values. How many times have we heard that ethics in education are important? We've also heard that medicine without ethics is disastrous. Now and then we keep hearing the same thing again, that where are the values or ethics we have lost in business? Even in relationships, people value values and ethics. But to explain the same thing in a more animated way, I'd like to elaborate that within a group of creatures, whether they are animals, birds, insects, trees, ferns, within a group of creatures, the human being is of great value. But within the human body, the human face is of greater value because it gives us identity. But within a human face, nothing adds more value than a smile. You can have a frown, nobody would be attracted, nobody would be gravitated to a frowning face. So a smile adds value to the human face. And within that smile, because people can smile sarcastically, people can smile in an angry way, people can smile to shoo you away, people can smile just to disarm you. But within that smile, nothing matches the value of love. So let's look at it the other way, that in a human body, the face is of great value. In a human face, smile is of great value. But within a smile, love adds life. We can see a face, we can see a smile, but love we can feel. Similarly, at the end of the day, as human beings and things that are alive, we value. Love is a value. Courage is a value. Honesty is a value. Patience is a value. Purity is a value. So, of course, all these values actually add life to life. And it actually sustains the strength of our journey. You could be a great successful man, but if you do not have the values that make you real successful, then that success would not last. To sustain your achievement, to sustain your relationship, to sustain your own life and purpose, each one of us needs a set of values. Even in the simple, let's say, antisocial behavior. Imagine a thief who is creating a team of thieves. He will also demand honesty from all other thieves. So honesty is a value even to a robber. Then why wouldn't honesty be a value to people who want to develop society? Pramukh Swami Maharaj often said that education without values would destroy, and education with values will protect. So if values have the power to destroy somebody and values have the power to sustain somebody, you may not be able to see them, but there are so many things that we can't see that give or support life. We can see food, but who can see air? Air is far more important than food. We can see the light, but who can see the electric current? It's invisible to the naked eye, but it's because of the current that there is light. We can see planets floating in space, but who can see the gravity that holds the planets together? Gravity is invisible, but it's perhaps far more important. Similarly, we can see creation, but we cannot physically see the Creator with our own eyes. But the energy of divinity is far more important than the wonderful creation that we see. So values may be invisible, but they give life to life. A simple circle can only be possible from the invisible center. If you hold a pencil at the center, take a string, you can create a circle. To create a smaller or a larger circle, you do not need to make a bigger or a smaller center. The center remains steady, unmoving, simple and small. But the circle can be drawn in smaller sizes or larger or bigger and bigger. But once the circle is drawn perfectly, you remove the pen and nobody will be able to identify the center. But it is because of the center that the circle exists. So it's because of our values that we exist as human beings. And if we understand the value of values, then I believe that we would focus more on the values that sustain or support human life or help us develop into wonderful human beings. The values of love, tolerance, harmony, purity, unity. These are the values that really support and sustain our lives. That is what every religious leader has explained. And that is why we need to focus more on the values which sustain life.
Wow, Swami, what an inspiring answer. I'm sure not only Shobha, but all of us have learned a lot from this question. And now, Swami, the final question for this evening is from Umesh Bhai in London. He's asking that as the sadhu changed the perspective of Alexander towards life, how can changing my perspective help me in my life?
Well, in fact, any change creates a difference, whether it's for good or bad, whether it's for better or worse. Even if you're sitting in one position and suddenly you change your position, it makes you more relaxed. Even if you're in one room and then you just walk out into the open courtyard, change brings you a difference. Even if somebody is a couch potato and he has a remote in his hand and he keeps changing channel after channel after channel after channel, he gets a new stimulus. So, of course, change brings a difference, and difference can create a difference in your and my life. Just as you asked that the sadhus brought a change in the perspective of life for Alexander the Great, and he could understand a deeper value. So, if you and I bring a little change of perspective, of course, our life will become much deeper, more meaningful, will have a greater purpose. Every day, we look for these changes. Come on, what's a holiday or a vacation? Vacation is simply a change of place. You're in one city, you go somewhere else. You're at one home and you go to a hotel, or you go from a hotel to a resort. And those guys who own a resort, they go to a forest or safari. So vacation is nothing more than a change in place. What's relaxation? Somebody who's always in a library reading books, for them to go to the seaside and doing nothing on the beach is relaxation. But the fishermen who are always on the sea, for them to go to a library and reading a book is relaxation. So vacation is a change of place. Relaxation is a change of activity. Meditation is a change of mindset. All day and every day, you consider yourself as the body, you dress the body, you feed the body, you keep the body comfortable. In meditation, when you transcend the body and when you consider yourself as a pure spirit, and that's when the energy is released. So meditation is a change of mindset. Similarly, a change of perspective can help you change your entire life. What do I mean by that? Well, if you love sweets and you've got a sweet tooth and you enjoy every sweet item in the world, the moment you discover that you have diabetes, you get a change in perspective that sugar is injurious to your health. And suddenly, your diet, your lifestyle, everything changes. So, a change in perspective, you don't need to do something greatly different. But to do things differently can make a great difference. Just as initially doctors just gave us medicine for our health, but nowadays when you go to the doctor will prescribe your medicines and also give you a little tip on diet. And you'll tell the doctor, well, doc, I have been eating all my life. Ever since I was born, I have been eating. The doctor would tell you, well, eat, but eat different. A slight change can make a big difference. Sometimes the doctor also tells you that not just change your diet, but walk half an hour a day, brisk walking. And then you can also tell the doctor, okay, doc, I have been walking all my life, ever since I was a little baby. Well, the doctor says, what you've been walking is not walking. When you walk half an hour in a brisk fashion, in an orderly way, that walk makes a difference. So yes, walk, but walk different. What is pranayam? We have been breathing all our lives. Without a breath, we would die. But in the pranayam, the yoga teacher tells us that no, breathe different. The breathing exercises are just breaths, but done differently. So breathe, but breathe different. What I'm here to tell you is just think. We've been thinking all our lives, sometimes even in sleep. But think different. Just as walking differently helps your health, breathing differently helps your mind, thinking differently will help your life. Thinking different is when David was facing Goliath. It was a big war, and the best warrior of one end stood up. Goliath was more than 7-8 feet tall. That's how it's been described. And David was a young boy. And everybody wondered that Goliath, who nobody could defeat, how this little David, who's inexperienced, how would he be able to defeat Goliath? Soldiers from the camp of David, they keep asking him, said, David, but Goliath is so huge. How will you ever defeat him? And that's exactly when David turns to the soldiers and says that, yes, because he's so huge, how can I ever miss? Change of perspective will help you go through daily events of life. If you learn to think things through positively, when Thomas Alva Edison was experimenting for the filament of a light bulb, and he must have tested almost 10,000 different stuff, whether they were metal, they were wood, they were straw, whether they were linen, whether it was mixed with food or vinegar, whatever. Almost 10,000 different experiments he did, and all of them had failed. When somebody told him that, Thomas, it's so saddening to know that you have tried 10,000 times and you have failed. Change of perspective. He says that no, I haven't failed. We've just discovered something amazing. And what's that discovery? That I've just discovered 10,000 things that won't work. So there'll be one thing that will work. When you change the perspective of life, then everything around you will change. So I believe that bringing those changes through your thinking, through the knowledge of our wise, elderly people who have led before us, and through the experiences of others, if we are able to change the perspective of life, we will change our lives.
Wow, what a session. A big thank you to Swamiji and our dear friends Kirtibhai Desai and Dipesh Bhatia for such an enlightening and thought-provoking question and answer session. Now, to enhance the evening on the value of values, we have a chief guest of honor among us, His Excellency Dr. Mugir Khamis Al-Kheli. He is a member of the Abu Dhabi Executive Council and also serves as the chairman of the Department of Community Development. He is also a board member of the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi. When we speak of UAE, we just don't speak about the beauty and the development, but we also speak of UAE's support for coexistence and tolerance. We are indebted to His Excellency and the leadership of this lovely country. Before we hand it over to His Excellency, let us view a video capturing the visit of His Excellency Dr. Mugir Khamis Al-Khali's visit to the Mandir construction site.
إن إدارة تنمية المجتمع بصفتها الجهة المنظمة للقطاع الاجتماعي والمعنية بترخيص دور العباد الغير المسلمين تحرص كل الحرص على ترسيخ مفهوم التعايش والمحبة والسلام والتسامح والتلاحم المجتمعي. تأتي هذه الزيارة الميدانية لمقر المعبد الهندوسي الجديد للوقوف على آخر المستجدات لمراحل البناء حرصا منا على سير عمل هذا المشروع المهم. الأخوة والأخوات الأعزاء، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية يسرنا في إدارة تنمية المجتمع في أبو ظبي المشاركة معكم اليوم ضمن هذا المؤتمر الذي يعكس روح القيم الإنسانية النبيلة، متأملين الجهود التي يقدمها الأصدقاء من المعبد الهندوسي. الحضور الكريم، تولي أبو ظبي أهمية بالغة على المستوى المحلي والدولي ترسيخ قيم الأخوة والترابط والتعاضد التي غرسها الوالد المؤسس الشيخ زايد بن سلطان آل نهيان طيب الله ثراه. إن قيمة القيم التي يجب أن يتحلى بها الفرد والمجتمع هي الأساس الذي يبرهن الانفتاح الثقافي في مجتمعنا، ونفخر بأن نكون نموذجا لذلك في المنطقة. وبهذه المناسبة أود تسليط الضوء على 3 قيم رئيسية وهي التلاحم المجتمعي والتكامل والمسؤولية المجتمعية. والتزاما منها تعمل دائرة تنمية المجتمع باعتبارها الجهة المسؤولة عن تنفيذ أجندة القطاع الاجتماعي في أبو ظبي على تعزيز التكامل والتماسك بين أفراد المجتمع بمختلف فئاته وأطيافه لضمان توفير حياة كريمة لكافة أفراد المجتمع، وذلك عبر التواصل الفاعل مع رجال الدين والجاليات من مختلف الديانات لتعزيز الروابط والسعي إلى دمج المجتمع باعتباره جزءاً أساسياً وفاعلاً في مسيرة التنمية الاجتماعية. وأثمرت هذه الجهود في تعزيز مستوى الرفاه وجودة الحياة في المجتمع بشكل واضح على الأرقام الإحصائية الأخيرة في الدورة الثانية من استبانة جودة الحياة، والتي شارك فيها أكثر من 72 ألف مشارك من المواطنين والمقيمين في أبو ظبي، حيث ارتفعت نسبة الشعور بالفخر للعيش في إمارة أبو ظبي إلى 97%. الحضور الكريم، لقد عملنا في دار تنمية المجتمع على وضع الإطار القانوني المنظم لتأسيس دور العبادة لغير المسلمين والإشراف على أدائها، مع التركيز على قيمة التكامل والتعاون مع دور العبادة، وذلك عبر تسهيل إجراءات تراخيص دور العبادة لتمكينهم من ممارسة شعائرهم الدينية بحرية تامة. وهذا ما انعكس بوضوح على أعداد دور العبادة في أبو ظبي، والتي وصلت اليوم إلى ما يقارب 20 دار عبادة تم ترخيصها بالكامل، والتي تنتمي إلى مختلف الديانات والمعتقدات والمذاهب. وبالانتقال إلى قيمة المسؤولية المجتمعية، لقد لعبت دور العبادة دورا هاما خلال أزمة انتشار كوفيد-19 من خلال التعاون الملموس مع الدائرة، حيث عملت على نشر رسائل الدعم النفسي وبث روح الإيجابية وقيم الإيمان والمحبة بين رعاياها، لتسليط الضوء على أهم الإجراءات الاحترازية، ولا بد من الإشارة هنا إلى مساهمة دور العبادة المالية والتطوع في إنجاح برنامج معا نحن بخير، حيث تخطى إجمالي المساهمات مليار درهم إماراتي، وذلك لدعم المتضررين من التحديات الصحية والاقتصادية الناجمة عن الجائحة. ولقد بذلت دور العبادة جهودا طيبة في تشجيع رعاياها على أخذ اللقاح ضمن حملة الوطني ليكن خيارك التطعيم، وكان لها دورا فاعلا في تسريع مرحلة التعافي، وكانت القيادة الدينية من أوائل الذين تلقوا اللقاح في رسالة تشجيعية ومطمنة لأبناء جالياتهم. وفي الختام اسمحوا لي أن أجدد شكري للأخوة من المعبد الهندوسي على مساعيهم المستمرة لتعزيز روح التلاحم والتسامح والسلام، متمنين من الله عز وجل أن يوفقنا جميعا لما فيه مصلحة البلاد والعباد. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
What wise words. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for gracing the webinar today with your presence and by delivering the keynote speech. We are truly indebted to you for sparing your valuable time for this event. So friends, and now taking this evening forward, as we all know, the beautifully carved stones for the mandir have started to arrive at the site. Let us view a video of Sadguru Pujya Swami, the international convener for the BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha, visiting the mandir construction site. Pujya Swamiji inspected the site and the plans, as well as performing a vidhi sanctifying the stones.
I would like to begin with remembering our Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharaj, because it was he in 1997 on 5th April on the sand dunes of Sharjah, when all of us were gathered around him, and very gently and very prophetically he whispered these words that may there be a temple in Abu Dhabi. After this entire sankalpa or the process, it was the heart and the love of our Guru Hari Mahan Swami Maharaj who accepted this challenge of creating a beautiful temple. Most importantly, the person that I would personally want to really thank is Pujya Ishwacharan Swami, who has overseen the construction of so many temples across the world, from Akshardhams to the temples across the world. And Ishwar Swami himself is here present. We thank and are deeply grateful to the rulers of the UAE, especially His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and all the other rulers who have been kind enough to take this generous step of offering this land. And who better than the arms and the hands of our beloved Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Bhai Modi, who has a passion to bring pride to our nation and to guide everybody that we can also be a part of the process and the progress of our country. So we thank both leaders who are visionary and who are also compassionate. With them, we thank two rulers who have been so close to us and who are actually overseeing the project. His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who has not just met us 3-4 times, he has personally visited Akshardham, and he has been the biggest support who continues to guide us, and we pass our love to him, and his support has been intense. But at the same time, His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan Mubarak Al Nahyan, who has been more than a family. We must have met him not less than 50 times, but he has been more than a family, and he has extended all his support and everybody who is present here and across this entire nation. There are donors who are quiet and silent. I thank them from my bottom of my heart.
आज हम बहुत भाग्यशाली है कि परम पूज्य महंत स्वामी महाराज यहाँ उपस्थित है और उनकी उपस्थिति में ही उनके ही कर कमलों द्वारा यह जो प्रथम शिला है उसकी यहाँ पूजा हुई है आप सबके सानिध्य में। तो पूज्य महंत स्वामी महाराज यहाँ दर्शन देते हैं, वो अपने लिए बहुत बहुत बड़ा सौभाग्य है। आज का जो अवसर है बहुत दिव्य अवसर है, क्योंकि यह यूएई की धरती पर यहाँ ऐसे भारतीय स्थापत्य पूर्ण अद्भुत महामंदिर का निर्माण होने जाना वाला है और यहाँ भारत के अपने सर्व जो पूज्य देव है सबकी यहाँ प्रतिष्ठा होगी। तो यूएई के सब भक्त लोग और सारे टूरिस्ट यहाँ आते हैं, सबके लिए यह बहुत बड़ा तीर्थ ये बनेगा। तो हम बहुत भाग्यशाली है। पूज्य भगवान पूज्य प्रमुख स्वामी महाराज ने अपने पर बहुत कृपा की है कि ऐसा दिव्य मंदिर अपने को भेंट में देते हैं। तो हम अपना जीवन सफल करें, यही प्रार्थना।
If given a choice, I'm sure we all would love to stay back and continue a journey of knowledge with Swamiji. But everything that begins must come to an end. And so does this event. As we conclude, I, on behalf of all our guests and committee members, extend my thanks to Pujya Swamiji for showering his blessings and knowledge on all of us and enlightening us with the importance of the value of values that shall be embedded in our hearts and minds. Thank you for bestowing upon us your wealth of knowledge. We also thank His Excellency Dr. Mugir Khamis Al-Kheli for taking out his invaluable time from his busy schedule and being with us. A special thank you to the organizers, volunteers, and the supporters of this session of understanding the value of values, which will follow up with another session on the topic of belief in oneself. Lastly, I thank you all for joining us today. Until we meet again with the next session. Thank you and Jai Swaminarayan.